is he has failed a couple of drug tests. To me, that rules you out of being the best of all time.
Really?
For me personally, yeah, I think.
Does it make him a cheat?
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah.
Jon Jones never backed down from that fight. That is not accurate. That was misreported. Jon Jones never said no to that fight.
The night before Pereira versus Ankalaev, and I'm only telling you that because if they had not got that deal done, then Pereira would have, in fact, been a pawn on the board. He would, in fact, right now, even off a loss, be a heavyweight.
I feel like Tom Aspinall is, I don't want to say nobody, but he just hasn't proven anything. He hasn't done anything.
Tom's 31, in the prime of his life, and I would be very surprised, and this sounds disrespectful, but I'd be very surprised if he got out the first round.
Really?
Yep.
After a long wait, Chael Sonnen has confirmed that both Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones have verbally agreed to fight. Now they're just waiting on the UFC to finalize a date. But the drama doesn't stop there. Tom Aspinall stirred the pot by refusing to call Jon Jones the greatest due to his past drug controversies. While Aspinall acknowledged that Jon Jones is undeniably elite, he drew a clear line when it comes to legacy. According to Tom, failing drug tests disqualifies anyone from the GOAT conversation. He didn't mince words, saying, asterisk, using performance-enhancing drugs is straight-up cheating, especially if your opponent is clean. Asterisk, while he admitted he doesn't believe Jon was necessarily on steroids, he emphasized that PEDs are PEDs, and they give an unfair advantage. In Aspinall's eyes, true greatness isn't just about winning. It's about doing it the right way.
Jon, let me first start by saying Jon is absolutely elite, and I completely agree with the notion that he's one of the best fighters ever.
Is he the greatest?
Potentially, but the way that I look at it is he has failed a couple of drug tests. To me, that rules you out of being the best of all time.
Really?
For me personally, yeah, I think.
Does it make him a cheat?
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah. If you're on steroids or whatever, I don't think he was on steroids, but he was on PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs. If you're on PEDs and your opponent isn't, that's absolutely cheating in my book, unless you're both allowed to do it.
Aspinall made it clear that he's never used any performance-enhancing drugs and never will. He mentioned that once he retires, he might consider testosterone replacement therapy strictly for health reasons, but only after his competitive days are over. He firmly believes PEDs have no place in MMA and should never be used while actively competing. As for Jon Jones, Aspinall said he's totally fine fighting him, as long as Jon is clean now. When it comes to calling Jones a cheat, Aspinall isn't sure how Jon will take it. He admitted that Jon could be a bit sensitive, but stood by his stance.
You've never taken anything like that?
Absolutely not.
You never would?
When I retire, I will, yeah. Absolutely, to keep my body healthy, and your body stops producing testosterone after a while. To be a healthy older gentleman, I'll probably do some kind of testosterone replacement.
You're suggesting I should be pumping steroids?
So. No, I don't think you should be on steroids, but I think I don't know a lot about the subject, to be honest. But I think when you fight in MMA, you absolutely shouldn't be using PEDs. No.
So should he even be allowed to fight you?
Yeah, if he's not using them now, yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
How do you think he'll feel when he sees you calling him a cheat on Uncensored?
I don't know. That's his
Do you
prerogative.
Care?
No, I'm not bothered. Jon Jones seems to get his feelings hurt a little bit.
On the other hand, UFC Hall of Famer Chael Sonnen has confirmed that the highly anticipated showdown between Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall is in the works. Both fighters have verbally agreed. Now it's just a matter of the UFC locking in a date.
Jones and Aspinall, is that going to be announced soon?
Yes. Jones and Aspinall is done. It's actually, contrary to the media, the athletes have agreed. It's the company doesn't have a date yet. The athletes, Jon Jones never backed down from that fight. That is not accurate. That was misreported. Jon Jones never said no to that fight. He talked about he was going to negotiate and he needed $30 million. He never got the phone call where he flinched, just so you know.
Before that, Chael Sonnen dropped a major insider scoop about the Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall fight. He revealed that both fighters had already verbally agreed to the matchup before UFC 313. And that agreement is the real reason Alex Pereira didn't move up to heavyweight. Chael stressed that no one else had reported this detail. According to him, if the Jones versus Aspinall fight hadn't come together, the UFC was prepared to move Pereira up in weight, even if he had lost. The only reason that plan changed and why a rematch with Ankleev is now on the table is because the UFC locked in Jones versus Aspinall behind the scenes.
With Jon Jones and Aspinall, at least verbally, the night before, this is inside information. You will not have heard the story anywhere else.
Wow, thank you.
Deal done verbally the night before Piera versus Ankalaev, and I'm only telling you that because if they had not got that deal done, then Piera would have, in fact, been a pawn on the board. He would, in fact, right now, even off a loss, be a heavyweight. And they would have got him out of the division completely. And the only reason that was no longer needed, opening the idea to a rematch with Ankalaev, a fight that wasn't heavily anticipated in the first place, is because they ended up getting that piece of business done. I just think that's very fascinating.
Michael Bisping also weighed in, saying he believes the Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall fight will likely happen in 2025, though he admitted he doesn't have any inside information. From what Bisping sees, Jon Jones appears to be on board, and the UFC is pushing for it as well. In fact, he mentioned that the promotion has even told Tom Aspinall the fight is essentially a done deal. Bisping added that it would be a real shame if this bout didn't come together. Whether the price tag is $30 million, $25 million, or $20 million, he's confident the demand for this fight will be massive.
Well, I definitely believe the fight will happen this year. Seems like Jones is up for it. Seems like the UFC want it to happen. I mean, they said to Tom Aspinall, it's a done deal, it's going to happen. And it would just be such a shame if that fight didn't happen. I think it's going to happen International Fight Week, Las Vegas 2025. But what do I know? I'm not basing that on any inside information. Excuse me. I'm not basing that on any inside information. I know what you know. When Joe Rogan said apparently he wants 30 million, good for him. You know, I hope he gets paid that money. You know, I hope he does, and I hope we get to see the fight. And if it isn't 30 million, maybe it's around that. Maybe it's 20 million, 25, maybe it's more, like you say. You know, I think the demand for this fight will be there. I think it's incredible that in this day and age, we're talking about these kind of fight purses being involved in mixed martial arts.
Michael Bisping continued the conversation by showering praise on Tom Aspinall, calling him Asterisk the greatest mixed martial artist the sport has ever seen. Asterisk, he sees Aspinall as a new generation of fighter, the future of MMA. While Bisping acknowledged Jon Jones' greatness and unbeaten record, he believes that every legend eventually meets their match. And in his eyes, Aspinall is that fighter. He emphasized Aspinall's incredible speed, agility, and technical skill, which he believes set him apart in a heavyweight division often dominated by raw power rather than finesse.
Who wins? Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. I've actually had Tom Aspinall on the channel. And Tom's a small favourite, isn't he?
Yeah, no, and he should be. He should be. Listen, Jon Jones is great, and you can't deny what he's done in the octagon, the career that he's had, and he's technically unbeaten. However, you know, everyone meets their match eventually. And I think Tom Aspinall's the new generation, he's the new breed, and he'll go down probably as the greatest mixed martial artist that we've ever had. He's elite as a heavyweight. A lot of the heavyweights, they're good, they're very strong, they're powerful, but they're not as quick and as agile and as technical as Tom.
Michael Bisping described Tom Aspinall as a complete package, even comparing him to a heavyweight version of Georges St-Pierre, one of the all-time greats. He praised Aspinall for having no clear weaknesses, highlighting his knockout power, discipline, agility, and ability to finish fights quickly. However, Bisping also acknowledged that Aspinall has yet to face someone like Jon Jones. He pointed out that the heavyweight division doesn't typically feature opponents with the same technical skill level as those Jones has faced throughout his career. That said, Bisping flipped the narrative by noting that Jon Jones has also never faced anyone quite like Aspinall, a fighter with a combination of size, speed, and devastating power.
Tom's the whole package. You know, he's like, there's a fighter called Georges St-Pierre, who's one of the greatest to ever do it. Tom's like a heavyweight Georges St-Pierre. He's got no weak areas. He's got absolute knockout power, super disciplined, super agile on the feet. He finishes everyone really, really quickly. However, he hasn't gone up against somebody like Jon Jones because, as I said, the competition in the heavyweight division isn't necessarily there on a technical level. Jon Jones is. And Jon Jones has fought way better competition than Tom. That's just a fact. But Jon's never fought anyone like Tom either. Jon has never fought anyone the size of Tom and that can generate that kind of power.
On the other hand, Ilia Topuria expressed doubt that Jon Jones will return to fight again. However, Joe Rogan had a more cautious take, suggesting that Jones might make a comeback to reclaim his glory won last time before retiring. During a recent podcast with Rogan and Topuria, both share their thoughts on potential Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall matchup. They acknowledge Jones' legendary status, calling him the greatest of all time and a true conqueror of the sport. Rogan speculated that Jones could take the fight with Aspinall for the massive payday it would bring, while he praised Aspinall as an incredible talent. He also pointed out that Aspinall hasn't yet been truly tested in deep waters, something that could be a major factor if the fight happens.
He's going to come back, he's going to fight Tom?
Yes, I think he'll fight Tom. Don't think so? Really?
For what?
For glory.
He already has the glory.
Yeah, one more glory before the lights fade. I think Jon's a conqueror.
He's the best of all time.
I think he fights Aspinall because I think it's going to be a lot of money. Aspinall's amazing, fast as for a heavyweight, black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he's never been in deep water.
You can't count him out at all, the Tom Aspinall, but I don't think that he's going to come back.
Meanwhile, despite all the buzz surrounding the potential matchup, Jon Jones doesn't seem interested in fighting Tom Aspinall. He admitted there's nothing about the fight that excites him, and even called Aspinall annoying. Jones questioned Aspinall's rise, pointing out that he's been in the game for years, while Aspinall only recently made his mark in the UFC. He openly wondered where Aspinall had been all this time. In Jones' view, Aspinall doesn't have a standout legacy. He dismissed Tom's resume, saying his most notable win was against an aging Andrei Arlovsky. To Jones, Aspinall is just another up-and-comer who wouldn't add much to his already legendary career.
The specter of Tom Aspinall is kind of in the background of this fight. It's hard to ignore. What would it take for you to be really interested in that fight?
Really nothing. You know, I find him annoying, and I mean, he just, I've been here for so long. He just got to the UFC not too long ago, and if he wanted to fight me, he could have been here. I was like, where have you been all this time? At the end of the day, he has no real standout legacy. I think the only guy he beat was Andrei Arlovsky. Andrei was very old at the time. He really has nothing that entices me. Nothing. He reminds me of a bunch of other up-and-comers that I fought that it does nothing for my legacy. Really nothing.
However, Tom Aspinall firmly believes that Jon Jones is ducking him. He openly stated that it's clear to him. Jon sees an easier path and is choosing to take it. Aspinall acknowledged the business side of the sport, admitting that bigger fights with less risk and more money would obviously appeal to Jones. But despite understanding the logic behind it, Aspinall didn't hold back. In his honest opinion, Jon is avoiding a fight with him. Plain and simple.
Do you think Jon is ducking you?
Yes.
Was that
I
Tom?
do. I think I said, yeah, he is. He definitely is. I think that there's just an easier path for him, and I understand it. I do understand it completely. I understand that there's bigger fights out there for him with way less risk and way more money. I understand it, but in all honesty, do I think he's ducking me? Absolutely.
British former professional strongman Eddie Hall also weighed in, agreeing that Jon Jones is avoiding a fight with Tom Aspinall. When discussing potential matchup, Hall said if Jones and Aspinall were locked in a room together, only Aspinall would walk out. While Hall respects Jones' incredible record, he's convinced that Jones is 100% ducking Aspinall. He pointed out that Jones has hinted at retiring after his next fight, potentially sidestepping a bout with Aspinall. To Hall, Jon can say whatever he likes, but at the end of the day, actions speak louder than words.